We're going to turn out to new trouble for Boeing, affecting thousands of planes in service right now. Safety regulators are recommending a redesign of the engine cover after that horrifying deadly incident on a Southwest flight last year.
Morning, Cecilia. This is a broad, wide-ranging recommendation affecting nearly 7,000 next-generation 737s, all a result of that accident you may remember, which resulted in the first aviation death in the U.S. in nearly a decade.
Everybody breathe. We are almost there.
A few horrifying seconds, an engine failure. The fuselage breached, a passenger partially sucked out of a window on Southwest Flight 1380 last year in April. It was engine debris that shattered this window where passenger Jennifer Reardon was sitting at 30,000 feet.
A new research shows China is responsible for 32% of South Korea's ultrafine dust and up to 70% when concentrations are particularly high. Exhaust gas is deemed as one of the biggest culprits of domestic pollution.
32% of Korea's ultrafine dust originates from China, while 50% is generated domestically. This is according to a joint study by Korea, China, and Japan, which analyzed the source and amount of pollutants smaller than 2.5 micrometers or ultrafine particles in the three countries between 2013 and 2017. The study is part of a broader project known as Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollutants in Northeast Asia, which was launched in 1996 to improve regional air quality.
An Australian professor held hostage by the Taliban is tonight free, safe and receiving medical care. Wagga Wagga man Tim Weeks and his American colleague Kevin King were snatched 3 years ago, but finally released in a prisoner swap deal. Their families are delighted.
It's the haunting plea from Tim Weeks just months after being captured.
Please help secure my release so that we can go free from this place. I don't want to die here. Not alone, not here.
The Australian and his American colleague Kevin King both taught at the American University in Kabul when they were kidnapped at gunpoint by the Taliban. A prisoner swap deal announced days ago by the Afghan president came through, with the two men freed yesterday.
Meanwhile, tonight, Swedish prosecutors have dropped their investigation into the rape allegations against Julian Assange. Now, remember, that investigation and the reams of press and the hours of television coverage that it got is kind of used as a pretense to go after Assange and eventually put him in jail, right, where he is now.
Well, today we learned that the Swedish Prosecution Authority has decided to discontinue its investigation into the rape allegations against Mr. Assange that began in 2010. Now, this is after 9 years, and it's the third time that this investigation into rape allegations has been dropped. In fact, Sweden's Deputy Director for Public Prosecution said that it cannot be proven that a crime has been committed, that the evidence is not strong enough to form the basis for an indictment, and that in such a situation, the preliminary investigation should be discontinued. So that's what happened. She also says that the reason for this decision is that the evidence has weakened considerably.
Why are the government withholding the dossier on Russian interference in UK elections and referendums when it's already been given the green light by the secret services?
There's absolutely no evidence that I've ever seen of any Russian interference in UK democratic processes. And as for that particular report, I saw no reason whatever to change the timetable for publications of a report just because there was a general election going on.
Do you not think the public deserve to know that in advance of the vote?
Well, I saw no reason to change the timetable for the publication of a report simply because of the general election on. I can tell you I've seen no evidence of any Russian interference in any British democratic event.
Welcome back. Now to the crisis in Hong Kong, which continues. The Senate unanimously passed a bill yesterday supporting the protesters and would compel the U.S. to impose sanctions on officials responsible for human rights abuses. This is a former employee of the UK consulate in Hong Kong, claimed that he was tortured by Chinese officials. He was forced to confess to crimes that he did not commit, he said.
Maria, good morning, good evening from Hong Kong. We are once again on the campus of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, which has been the scene of this violent standoff over the last 3 days. And we're getting indications within the last hour that the police here may be planning a final operation to flush out the few dozen hardcore protesters still holed up here on this campus. This footbridge behind me here is one of the entrances the police will use. There aren't many to this campus, but one that they would use presumably if they do decide to come in tonight.
Now, railway workers in Korea have started an indefinite strike, demanding better pay and working conditions. Some passengers have already been inconvenienced by delays and cancellations.
The Korean Railway Workers Union went on an indefinite strike as of 9 a.m. Wednesday. Substitute workers were in place to operate high-speed KTX and commuter trains, but passengers are already being affected. KTX trains are expected to run at around 69% of usual levels. SRT trains will run at around 78%. Commuter trains are expected to operate at some 60% and freight trains 31%. During off-peak hours, subways in Seoul are expected to run at about 82% of usual levels.
This is Beirut's only public beach, but it's not a great spot for bathers. Untreated waste is flowing into the water. A study by a government body this year concluded the sea here is too polluted to swim in, with trash piling up and fecal matter lurking under the water's surface. In 2015, Lebanon's trash crisis spiraled out of control. The country's biggest landfill closed its doors, rotting rubbish was everywhere, Beirut streets drowning in trash. The government hastily built new landfills, but now they're at capacity too. This site, Costa Brava, was supposed to close 2 years ago, but instead the government has expanded it. It's just next to Beirut Airport, posing a danger both to public health and to flights.
Bosnia's railway lines are the main source of transportation for thousands of migrants trying to reach Europe. From the capital Sarajevo, they head north to Bihać, a town bordering European Union member Croatia. But this train, migrants are heading back to Sarajevo due to what they say are inhumane living conditions in Bihać. The United Nations estimates that Bosnia is hosting 7,000 to 8,000 migrants. Camps provided by the government have been declared a humanitarian disaster by EU representatives and human rights advocates. The Bosniak member of the three-man presidency blames the lack of coordination on political infighting and xenophobia.